The day the calm was shattered. At 29, Marissa believed she had finally walked into the life she'd always dreamed of. She stood beside Ethan, her husband of 2 years, also 29, the man everyone called dependable, steady, and kind. He never made her heart race or her breath catch, but he offered something she had been taught to value above all else: security. Her upbringing was a landscape of instability. Marissa's earliest memories weren't of bedtime stories or warm family dinners, but of her mother weeping softly behind closed doors and eviction notices plastered on their door. She remembered vividly how her mother would hide past due bills under loose floorboards in the kitchen, as if hiding them could delay the inevitable. By 12, Marissa was scrubbing laundry for neighbors just to afford her school supplies. On her 18th birthday, she made herself a quiet, binding vow. One day, I will never live in fear again. Ethan seemed like the embodiment of that vow. He was from a family of quiet wealth, held a stable job as a financial analyst, and lived with purpose and discipline. He planned every week with precision and saw life as a series of carefully calculated steps toward success. Marissa convinced herself that passion was overrated. She told herself that love would come with time, that their shared goals and steady companionship were enough. But as the months turned into their first year of marriage, their life settled into a dull rhythm. Ethan was unwavering, kind, loyal, thoughtful. He brought her flowers, planned surprise weekend getaways, and never forgot an anniversary or birthday. Yet, something inside her began to wilt. Their evenings became silent. They ate dinner without speaking. She no longer laughed at his jokes. At night, she turned away from him in bed, finding herself drifting to the very edge of the mattress just to feel the cold air on her skin. Ethan noticed, and he tried. He booked reservations at new restaurants, bought her thoughtful gifts, planned spontaneous trips, all in an effort to reignite what was slipping through his fingers. Marissa played along, smiling for the photos, thanking him at the right moments, but inside she was numb. She wasn't ungrateful. She was simply empty. The security she had once craved had turned into a gilded cage. Her calm, predictable life now suffocated her. Late one night, she lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling while Ethan slept beside her, his breathing soft and even. She watched the light from the street lamp paint soft lines across his face. She didn't feel anger. There was no bitterness or blame in her heart. There was just nothing. Ethan had never really been anything more than a symbol to her, a promise of safety. He was the man she had chosen to shield her from the chaos of her past. And now, here she was with everything she thought she wanted, and it didn't feel like enough. Her mind drifted back to her teenage years, to a night she had spent curled on her aunt's sofa, after another of her parents' fights. She remembered staring at the ceiling, making herself a new vow. I will never live like this. I will never repeat their mistakes. But now, she wondered, had she simply traded one kind of misery for another? Doubt seeped in slowly, but it grew louder every day. She began to see Ethan not as her husband, but as a structure, steady, dependable but cold. He was a blueprint for a life that no longer fit her. And she couldn't explain it to anyone, not even herself. How could she complain? Her marriage was, by all appearances, perfect. Who was she to want more? Her days blurred into monotony. Ethan left for work early. She kept the house immaculate but no longer found joy in it. She stopped preparing their shared meals and retreated from the little rituals that once connected them. Ethan, believing she needed space, gave it to her. But his kindness became unbearable. His silence became deafening. Then, during a family lunch, Ethan's mother's words struck her like a slap across the face. Ethan's always been a rock. He takes such good care of Marissa, like a father looking after his little girl. Everyone at the table smiled fondly. But those words unsettled her. She didn't want to be protected anymore. She wanted freedom to exist on her own terms, not as someone's dependent. One evening, standing before her bathroom mirror, Marissa whispered aloud, "Do I even deserve this life?" Her reflection stared back, Flawless, composed, a stranger. A woman who looked like she had everything, but felt utterly vacant. And that was when it began. Not with a grand decision, but with a simple errand. She needed groceries for dinner. That's all it was supposed to be. A quick trip to the store before Ethan returned. But fate often hides in the most mundane places. Wandering the aisles, distracted and adrift in thought, Marissa accidentally collided with a man juggling a heavy bag of rice. She muttered an apology, but he only smiled, easy, warm, magnetic. He joked about the absurd cost of organic apples, and she laughed. A genuine, spontaneous laugh she hadn't felt in years. His name was Julian. He was local, charming, playful, nothing like the world she knew. They talked for 15 minutes in the cereal aisle, laughing about trivial things. When they parted, he asked for her number. She hesitated. But something inside her craved the unknown. She handed it over. That evening, as Ethan worked late, her phone buzzed. "Julian, hope dinner turned out all right. I make a pretty mean lasagna if you ever need help." She smiled, replying before she could think twice. From that moment, a quiet thread began to weave between them. Their text started out harmless, light, teasing, but soon deepened. He asked questions Ethan never had. About her favorite books, her dreams, her fears. And she told him everything, except that she was married. He never pushed for more. But he understood her loneliness without needing an explanation. One night, lying next to Ethan, she played a voice message from Julian in the dark. "You deserve something that stirs you back to life." The words struck her like thunder. Soon after, she met Julian in person again. She claimed she was seeing a friend and slipped away. They met in a quiet cafe tucked out of sight. Before going in, she removed her wedding ring and hid it in her purse. Julian greeted her with a red rose. They talked for hours. His presence was intoxicating. When he kissed her goodbye, lingering just a moment too long, her heart didn't race from guilt, but from desire. Soon their meetings became regular. Walks in the park. Drinks in hidden corners. Long conversations in his car. Their hands met and stayed clasped. Touches grew bolder. Kisses became inevitable. She began dressing for Julian. Subtle perfume, carefully chosen lipstick. She lied to Ethan with ease. Her phone became a portal to another world. Julian's messages arrived at all hours, filling the cracks in her soul. Eventually Julian wanted more. More time. More honesty. More risk. So she told him the truth. She was married. She expected him to walk away. But Julian simply said, "I like who you are with me. I'm not asking you to leave your life. But I won't pretend we're anything else but real." And that was enough to keep her tethered. What began as flirtation now felt like love. She wanted this life more than the one she had at home. And soon, she crossed the line she could never uncross. With Ethan away on a business trip, she invited Julian into her home. Into the house she had built with Ethan. Into the bed she shared with her husband. They laughed and kissed beneath those familiar sheets, erasing every boundary. Afterward, they joked cruelly about Ethan, mocking his cluelessness, laughing at how easily he'd been deceived. She believed Ethan would never discover it. But Ethan wasn't blind. He had noticed the late nights, the sudden evasiveness, the lies too carefully rehearsed. Quietly, without saying a word, he began collecting evidence. He placed hidden recorders in the bedroom and living room. He waited. And one evening, when Marissa least expected it, everything fell apart. Just after sunset, Ethan walked in, his face unreadable. "How was your day?" she asked, keeping her voice light. Ethan set his phone down, opened a file and pressed play. Her voice filled the room, laughing with Julian, mocking Ethan, sneering at his devotion. Marissa froze, her face drained of color. She lunged for the phone, but Ethan kept it just beyond her reach. He remained calm, eerily calm. When the recording ended, he looked at her and said in a voice as cold as ice, "Pack your bags. You're leaving tonight." She sobbed, pleaded, tried to explain, but it was too late. Ethan had already sent the recordings to her parents, people who had relied on him for years. They now knew everything. Marissa begged for forgiveness. But Ethan simply turned, walked away, and said over his shoulder, "Be gone by morning." That night, he stayed at his brother's house. By dawn, Marissa left. Her parents opened the door, their faces grim. She had lost everything. And all that remained was the echo of a life she'd destroyed, chasing something she could never keep.